Jaria Digital tells you many different stories of the world. The horrible story about a supervisor. Julia's husband brought his supervisor to their home regularly. At first, she really disliked treating the supervisor at night. And she disliked the supervisor too. He should have not visited his junior staff's home at night. So Julia treated them unfriendly. However, after the supervisor visited them often, she started getting along with him. Her husband could not drink very well. She was better than her husband. So after her husband fell asleep, Julia talked with the supervisor while they drank together. She became familiar with drinking together. Her husband was the extremely silent type with Julia. But Julia really liked talking with her husband. So she enjoyed talking with the supervisor instead of her husband when they drank together. Unlike her unkind husband, his supervisor was very kind to her. And he talked very well. One day she asked him,
"Why didn't she get married yet? If you are okay, I can introduce my friend to you."
It was not easy to meet a nice lady like you. Your husband is such a lucky guy because he met you.
Julia was glad to hear it. And she thought that the supervisor is a good guy. One day her husband called her.
I have a lot of work today, so I have to work all night long. I can't go back home tonight.
She had to have dinner alone. At that time, suddenly there was a ring at the door. When Julia opened the door, she was surprised. Because the supervisor of her husband was there. It was awkward to meet him without her husband. She was wondering why he was there alone while her husband was working. But she was a polite woman. So she let him get inside. Anyway, he was the boss of her husband.
I am so sorry to come here alone.
And then he changed the subject.
This food smells very good. What did you cook today?
He looked hungry for her food. So Julia suggested that they have dinner together.
Why don't you have dinner with me tonight?
If you are okay, let's have dinner together. Your food is so good. Your husband is a lucky man because he has a nice dinner with you every night.
He kept praising Julia while he ate her food. So she became happy to hear it. Finally, they started drinking together. And they kept on talking and drinking together. Julia forgot that her husband was not there with her.
Julia, are you happy now?
All of a sudden, he asked. It was the first time that he called her by her first name. So she didn't answer right away. And he kept staring at her. Finally, he said again,
Honestly speaking, I am not happy at all.
He looked sad and tired.
What happened to you today?
I knew your husband was not here tonight. Because I gave him a lot of work today. He has to work all night long.
Julia became confused. She thought he fell in love with her. But she was a married woman. When she thought like that, he said again,
I want to check inside.
What is he talking about? She thought He wants to check what I am thinking now? Inside of my feelings? Supervisor stared at Julia for a while. And he said,
Please help me. Julia. Only you can help me. Please.
Suddenly the doorbell was ringing at the moment. There was her husband at the door. When she came back to the dining room with her husband, the supervisor disappeared.
Did you drink alone?
Julia didn't say anything. She was just wondering about the situation. Where was the supervisor gone?
Actually, I didn't work tonight. I just went to the funeral home.
Oh my, who died?
My supervisor passed away.
What?
She was shocked by his words. It gave her the creeps. His words sent a chill down her spine. Suddenly she went to the comfort room to check inside. And then she checked everywhere to find the supervisor.
What are you doing now?
Her husband asked. But Julia didn't answer.
This supervisor passed away? Why?
Because of the car accident. The brake was out of order.
Suddenly Julia recollected what the supervisor told her.
I want to check inside.
It might mean checking the inside of his car. She shouted.
You have to ask the police to check the inside of his car.
Her husband was surprised when she shouted. But he thought her point was reasonable. So he called a police officer to ask to investigate the car before police closed the case. Later, police caught a guy who broke the brake to kill the supervisor. He worked for a rival company. And her husband got promoted. He never knew about the ghost of the supervisor. His wife kept it secret from him. Julia has prayed for the soul of the supervisor every day. She didn't see him again. She hopes the supervisor rests in peace now. We will deliver a variety of issues and knowledge around the world. Thank you for watching Jaria Digital.